Hey everyone, welcome back to the Soul Unleashed podcast. It's my delight here to introduce to you Jackie Breezer. Jackie and I met, I guess, 2 years ago, a little over a year ago anyway, in Austin, Texas, at a book writing seminar. Jackie is an author, a shamanic healer, and I'll have her describe some of the other things that she does. But Jackie, welcome, and it's really good to see you again.
Great to see you, Mike. Always a pleasure.
I'm going to ask you, first of all, I think, to explain most, not most, but a lot of the people that listen to my podcast are, like me, left brain types. And a lot of the stuff that you do is considered, woo woo is a kind word. Crazy is probably less kind. But explain, if you will, for my audience, your background so they kind of understand where you're coming from.
Sure. I in 2019 left a career in engineering and leadership. I had actually been practicing engineer. I had a master's in engineering management and was in a leadership position at a manufacturing company for many years. And so, process improvement expert, I guess, is what my last part of the career was. And I loved what I did. And I love solving problems and making things better. And process improvement was my jam. But I started to get kind of restless because I had kind of some other experiences that were peaking up that I had to face. And so when I was a young kid, I used to see dead people, and
Cool.
I had to learn what was real and what wasn't. I would ask my little sister, "Do you see that guy standing over there?" And she'd be like, "What guy?" So then I'd be like, "Okay, not real." So I really taught myself to shut off that, and I learned how to be in the world and try to be like everyone else. And I was a pretty sensitive kid. Did my best to be a meet all the requirements of the good citizen checklist, went to college, had a great career. But as I got older, I realized that there was a part of me that I wasn't honoring, you know, um, mediumship, being able to do healing work and help people was something I wasn't getting a chance to do in the corporate environment. And I just got more and more restless as the years went on. And I knew I needed to leave, and I had been inspired to write a novel. And as an engineer, clearly, I don't know how to write a novel. I know how to read them, but not how to write them. And so I was started writing a novel on weekends, and I really got inspired. And it just became clear to me after a bit that I'm doing the wrong stuff now. I need to move on. I need to switch gears. And so I had planned to leave my career and finish writing my book. And then I had this random weird trip and fall accident and bonked my head. And
Oh.
it was a pretty rough, bad concussion. And that kind of, knocked some sense into me, or maybe scared the crap out of me. I don't know
Mhm.
which way you want to look at it. But I realized I don't want to die with my book in me. The story that I had been dreaming about and wanting to write, it's like, I got to write that. And that vision of being able to help people heal from their past and learn how to be in the world and be a sensitive person in the world and how to function and how to be human, but also honor your spiritual side. It's like, I got to figure that out for myself, and then maybe I can help others figure that out. And so, uh, in 2019, I left my job and began an adventure of starting my own business, finishing my book, and I went through shaman school.
Well,
So
good. Let me.
we'll
I
talk
want to
about
ask you
that.
more about that, but let me. There's a lot that you just covered, so let me just ask you a couple questions. So, when you were growing up, what was your faith system, if any?
Sure. So we were Lutheran. Our family was Lutheran faith, and we weren't every week churchgoers, but we did believe in God, and so I uh, I always knew that what I saw was real to me. But when I described it to my parents or other people, I was kind of the weird kid. And I just remember having some experiences where, um, kind of being told over and over again, don't be the weird kid. You know,
So
like
were
my mom.
so your parents were, would you say, not acceptive of that? Do they see it as a gift or a problem?
Um, they just didn't know. They were young parents, and they just didn't know um, what it was actually. And so it was easier to just encourage me to be like everyone else than it was to maybe explore or look into what my gifts were. Plus, back then, this would have been in the 70s, right? No one
Mhm.
was, there was no mediums on TV. There was no resources. There was no internet to learn
Did
more
you
about
did
it
you
or
did you know
explore it.
the dead people that you saw? Like when you say you saw dead people, were they relatives or neighbors or complete strangers?
Um, it all of the above.
Did
I
they
think the
attempt to
most,
communicate with you?
yeah, yeah, I think the most telling one, and I actually wrote about this in one of my blogs, was my parents bought an old house that they were going to renovate, and the upstairs of the home, um, there was. I went upstairs and I saw a boy up there. He was a teenager, and he had been um, killed in a gun accident, and he in one of the bedrooms upstairs. And so I went up there because I wanted to see what our new house was going to be like, and we were remodeling it. And when I went up there, I saw him, and I was talking to him, and I told my parents, "Oh, I was talking to that boy up there." My parents were like, "What boy?" Well, of course, they hadn't told me that someone had died in that house.
Oh,
Um,
geez.
but anyway, so I talked to him and everything, and so yeah, it got pretty weird after that. And then after a while, it was like, just don't talk about that, Jackie. You know.
How old were you when that happened?
I think I was probably first grade, because it was when we lived in a big old farmhouse. Um, but at the time, there was nowhere to go. Like if you had a child that had a special gift, where would you even go to learn about it back then? We didn't have the internet and all that stuff. So I just, over time, emulated what I saw around me. And being a pretty sensitive person, it's like, okay, I'm seeing how other people are, and I know I'm expected to be like them. And so
So
I
so
figured
so
out how to
Jackie,
do that.
these people that you were seeing, and the reason I'm kind of asking more about this is I want to be clear. They were not haunting you or bothering you. Were they trying to communicate with someone in this life or get a message to you, or what? Correct me if I'm wrong, but was their purpose made you feel bad, or how did you feel when you saw them?
Sure. They all have different reasons for reaching out. As a young child, I think that I saw they came to me because they knew I could see them, but I wasn't old enough to be able to maybe deliver a message for them or do much with them.
Hmm.
But so I think it was just because I could see them, and they're kind of maybe trapped here, hadn't really crossed over, and hadn't really maybe accepted that it was time to go. And so I talked with that boy. That I think we lived in that house for like 5 or 6 years. So I talked with him um, frequently when we lived in that house. I didn't tell people about it,
Yeah.
but because it was odd. But um, I just learned to like coexist with him, because it's like, well, this was his house too, and sometimes I'd see him, sometimes I wouldn't. But I
Did he
think that
appear as a like a person or as an apparition or three-dimensional, two-dimensional, you know, opaque? How would you describe him?
to me, when I was a kid, they look like absolutely real. Like I couldn't. distinguish between alive or not alive.
Okay.
um, but now that I'm an adult, it looks different to me, and
So you
so
still
I'm not
see
sure.
people that way.
Yep, I do still see people that have passed on. Since then, of course, I've gotten some training, and I've learned quite a bit about how to manage or control my energy, so that I'm not doing mediumship unless I'm working, right? Or
Okay.
unless I'm intending to be doing mediumship. Um, as a
So they don't just show up in your room. You
No,
invite them
no,
or look for them. Okay.
no, because I have to. If I don't have some fences around who I am and how I'm going to be in the world, right? That would be a real energy drain if people are coming to me all the time, and then I
Hmm.
could, it could be very difficult to deal with. And I ran into that quite a bit when I was like in my 30s. And so now it's more structured, where each day I imagine myself in a white room with a white door, and I'm in the light. I do my things. I walk in the world. I be a good human. And on occasion, I let that white door open, and I let one person in at a time. And that purpose is for healing, for the highest good or benefit of whoever my client is who's sitting in the chair next to me. And it's all, I do it for the healing that comes from sharing messages, because often people have things they want to say to someone that they didn't get to say before they
Okay.
left, or just even having faith that there is something out there beyond what we see in this life, because life is really a drag sometimes here. And we need to know and have faith that there's something else out there, like there's something bigger. And so I think when I do mediumship with people, that helps them to see that, and bring comfort that their loved ones are, at peace, and um, ready to uh, continue their soul's journey, whichever way it is meant to go.
So there's two questions I'd like to ask you about that, please. One is, what was it like, being a teenager and struggling with all the teenager things and boys and dating and high school and all those pressures, and having the gift that you had? Was that like added pressure, or did you by that time tamped it down to where it was just something in the background?
I had pretty much locked it down by the time I was a teenager. I didn't really have too many struggles with it. You know, like on a daily basis, it wasn't a struggle. There was a couple of my high school classmates who had been killed while I was in high school in a auto accidents, and so
Hmm.
then I, of course, ran into them at their own funerals, watching themselves and watching
Oh,
everyone
wow.
there. Um, but for the most part, it was pretty much all wrapped down. And then when I got to be in my 30s, then I started waking up in the middle of the night with dead people in
People
my
coming in.
bedroom, wondering, "Oh my gosh, I got to get a handle on this."
So,
Things
so is there
things
any
change
advice?
somehow.
Is there any advice you'd give to somebody who's gone through that at a young age, like as a teenager, that has those gifts?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, it is a gift. I know for me, I always felt like being really sensitive, felt like a curse sometimes. I could tell when people were lying to me.
Hmm.
I could, you know, feel people's sorrow, or people who are really struggling. I could feel it on them. And so I could really, I was empathic, so I could really feel a lot of information from people. Um, and but then somehow you take it on yourself. So then you
Hmm.
think, oh, why am I so sad? Well, you know what? You might not be the one that's so sad. It might be the person in the chair next to you who's really having a hard time, who's really sad, but you're picking up on that energy and you're feeling it. And so, my advice to anyone who has those kinds of gifts, either mediumship or just empathic abilities, is to learn more about it, get some education on it. There's a lot of information available on how to um, control your the information you pick up and kind of protect yourself so that you don't get drained by other people's things. A lot of times I'll tell somebody, ask if you're feeling weird and you don't know why, ask yourself, is this my stuff? Is this my stuff that I'm feeling? It could
Hmm.
be the person next to me in the grocery store line, or it could be that, something you just saw on television, that, you know, sparked something in you that was like kind of
You
activating that, um, those emotions of sadness or sorrow or whatnot.
can
But
you get
definitely for kids, I mean, I didn't have any place to go when I was a kid, so I just shut up about it.
can you go the opposite direction? I mean, can you get happy feelings or from other people? Is it always sadness that you intuit, or can it be happy things?
I could pick up happy stuff too. I
Okay.
think that when I was in my corporate role, years ago, that was part of my success in the corporate world, was that, I loved what I did. I was a good engineer and a good leader, but I also, was really good at understanding my staff, knowing how different people thought, how they felt about things. I could tell if somebody wasn't on board with something I asked them to do,
Hmm.
or so I listened to my employees. I was really open to and engaging, I guess, to my staff to hear what they had to say, because I always felt like, I don't have all the right ideas, but with all of us in this room, we certainly can come up with some good ones, right? But so often people can be intimidated in a meeting, or uh, all there's corporate posturing and all that stuff, that keeps some great ideas that never get spoken. And so, I think it was kind of like my superpower when I was in the corporate world, to help me solve problems, because a lot of times I asked questions other people wouldn't ask.
I love the fact that you are. Um, I know there's some debate about whether left brain, right brain stuff does exist, but you come from a background engineering wise where you at least analyze data and take in data and can make decisions based upon that. So what would you say to somebody who asks or is of the opinion that what you're doing, what you're seeing, what you're experiencing is from Satan and you're being tricked or you're being fooled or you're being manipulated because you obviously have a very strong belief in there is something beyond this life, as I do. But what would you say to somebody that said everything that you're experiencing is just a ploy by Satan to fool you and through you other people?
Hmm. Sure. I mean, of course, I've heard that before. In fact, that's why I didn't tell people that I had this ability until about 2 years ago.
Okay.
I didn't publicly announce it. People who knew me, like close members, family members, and friends knew, but the world did not know until 2 years ago when I published a blog about it. And I did run into that a little bit, but I think that, there's so much going on in the world around us that we just do not understand. And as human beings, when we see something that we don't understand, for whatever reason, we have to label it. And a lot of times we put a fear label on it and we make it something sinister, or, um, not, um, not life supporting or whatever. But in the end, when you think about, like how people think and what our own beliefs are, um, every single person on the planet has their own set of beliefs. And when I first started telling people that I was a medium, I thought I was going to get a ton of unfriending happening, but it really wasn't as much as I thought, because I can tell you that there's not a person on this planet who hasn't experienced something that they couldn't explain, right?
Hmm.
Like, it's like, wow, I don't know what that was. And so, um, our human bodies and brains are limited into the capacity that of understanding that we have. But if you consider the fact that we are all beings of light, and you know, when I've encountered people who have strong beliefs that mediumship uh, or any of this spiritual type stuff is of the devil or negative in some way, I just remind myself that there's a billion people, billions of people in the world, and every single person has their own set of beliefs. And so often we've all experienced something that we can't explain. And just because we can't explain it or understand it doesn't mean it's not real. I read an article recently that there's like 10,000 frequencies of vibration and light that are um, that exist in you know in the vibrational frequency of the world, and the human eye and brain and ears can only perceive like I think 10% of it. So if you consider that there's all of that stuff is happening, but our bodies can only fathom 10% of what's out there. Well, you know, we experience something that we don't understand, and it is kind of fear invoking. Like, oh, I don't know about that, right? And so, um, and some of the religious dogma, of course, has assigned that as not being or as being of the devil or whatever, how it's described. Um, but
Have you ever encountered the devil or that type of entity in what you do?
I have not, but I set very clear intentions whenever I'm doing any sort of spiritual work, um, that everything I do is in the light, for the highest good of everyone involved. Um, you know, I'm a sovereign being. The people I'm working with are sovereign beings. We do not not allowing basically any other outside influences to come into play when we're working with spirit. It's like this is all for our highest good. It's
Have
all
you
love and light or nothing. And I really haven't run into anything dark or evil or anything like that because I set the intention super duper clear. And if I am like out in the world and I run into something or a situation where I'm like red flags go off right away, um, I just get the heck out of there, you know,
okay?
or get away from that person. Um, but I've not seen it like in my practice because, when people come to see me, they're like in my office and this is like a sacred space and this is where um, healing
Have,
work is done. And so it's all for healing intent. And so it's not something I've encountered. Other people may have different experiences, but so far I haven't had that. And
have you encountered the subject of hell with anybody that's come through or anybody that you've spoken with?
um, there have been, clients who have asked, like, did my dad go to heaven or did he go to hell? Um, my belief is that heaven and hell are really our choice of it's what we perceive as as positive or happy or unhappy or whatnot. So we make that construct ourselves and we use it to torture ourselves as we live on this planet, with dogma and um, fear based conditioning of you better do this or you're going to go to hell. You, you better follow the good citizen checklist or you're not going to get where you need to
Hmm.
go. Um, so it's people have asked me about it. I believe that you know there's just there's another side, but there's levels of it. So some people might um, be at a much higher level, more ascended, I guess, when they leave and they go to the other side, and other people may not be highly ascended, but for me personally, I don't really believe in a place of hell. I think that that's hell is what you make of it, and
See,
it's not a belief that serves me or my beliefs.